Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another amazing woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
I'm Monica Mo Anderson. I am a doctor of dental surgery, podcast host, author, and two-time cancer survivor. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, and I am a young 60 years old and very, very grateful for the 6 decades of life behind me and every day in front of me. I want to share a little bit of my story because so often people just look at you, they see where you are, they see what you're doing, or they see some titles, material things, and they think, in the words of Beyonce, I woke up like that. But that's not the way it goes. There have been challenges, there have been trials, and there have been great, great moments of triumph. Just recently, my first TED Talk was posted. It's what dentistry teaches us about how to curb racism, and I talk about the intersectionality of my race and my chosen profession and the parallels, and that's been a great highlight for me. But before that, 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare, very rare form of cancer. There are only 1,000 to 3,000 cases a year diagnosed. It's called gastrointestinal stromal tumor, and it was at a point in my life when I was ready to launch out. I was an empty nester. I was 49 years old. I was the picture of health as far as everyone knew. I was writing books, speaking, practicing dentistry, just Renaissance woman, and serving the community with my sorority, with a nonprofit initiative I started. It's always like that when you think you're doing great things, when you think you paid your dues, and then something comes from nowhere. And this diagnosis, I was diagnosed at 3 a.m. Thought I had food poisoning. I felt sick, I felt weak, but I had just started a new position as director at a national company, and I was not going to let them see me sweat, cry, or break down. So I would do what I had to every day. And finally, by Friday of that week, I ended up in the hospital. And I'll never forget when the emergency room physician came in the room to give me the results of the scan they'd done that I didn't even want. And I just remembered the expression on his face when he said, "We found a mass." Your life can change in one word, in one sentence, in one period. My life changed from before my cancer diagnosis to afterwards, because after that, there was just a whirlwind of tests and procedures, and nobody had ever even heard of this type of cancer before. And the worst part of it all is there is no cure for the type that I have. I take daily medication. There are lots of side effects, and I went into a depression because I was on top and the mountain was pulled out from under me. I went into a deep, dark depression. All I talked about was what was happening to me. And people do that with divorce. They do that with loss. This was a form of loss. And it took me a while. It took some mental health care. It took some really great friends and support for me to realize I had been given a new life, a new opportunity. My priorities changed, my goals changed, even my view of my family and spending time with them changed. I was working to do things for them, but ultimately they really want us with them. And that's more valuable. So now the things that I do, the talks that I give, the books that I write are about giving back. They are about giving back, pouring into other people. And I want to use day, each day to do something good, to do something positive, to learn something. When we are hit with these unexpected circumstances, with these dark times, I have been through divorce, I've been through financial problems, I have faced the big C for 10 years now. My lifespan was expected to be 5 years, but guess what? I shall live and not die and declare the works of the Lord. I am still here, and I wake up fighting every day. I'm fighting that diagnosis. I'm fighting racism. I'm fighting sexism. I'm fighting regionalism. I'm fighting against people who misinterpret my dialect as a problem with my intellect. I have a Southern drawl, but I'm not stupid. And I know that when we are given these second opportunities, when we are given another chance, we are to take advantage of that. And we're to do something positive. It's really a test of resilience, of strength. And people are attracted to that. People will come. They want to hear your story. They want to see how you got back on your feet. So don't just stand back up. Stand back up, reach out, and pull up another woman. Help someone else. Show your family what it looks like to overcome. They need examples. They need role models. They need role models for kindness. They need role models for caring, self-care, for life balance. You know, I was busy showing mine how to grind, but I needed to show them how to sit down, how to take a vacation, how not to be the only one in the room talking, sucking all the air out of everything. I'm telling you that diagnosis, I won't say it was the best thing that ever happened to me to be diagnosed with cancer, because it was not. There are a number of things that were better, but it was one of the greatest things that happened to me because it changed me in ways I didn't know I needed changing. It brought people into my life who, you know, that's when you find out who your friends are. When you are down, when you need help sitting up, standing up, when you need people to bring you food, that's when we find out when our friends are. And there is something in knowing who is loyal to you, who is going to support you, who is going to help you. So since I've been diagnosed in those 10 years, I had an option of just sitting around and letting people take care of me, or I could fight my way back to health. I went from being on a walker to being on a cane to running in a 5K. I was determined with every bit of my strength that I wasn't just going to do academic things, but health-wise, spiritually, I'm spending way more time in meditation, in prayer, and just all around. I've got a full 360-degree life. And that's what I would want for you, is to not shut down, not cut off other people, not give up on your dreams, on your hopes. Like me, the TED Talk. That was something I'd always wanted to do as a speaker. That is a TEDx talk is what I did. And that, you know, that is a really great milestone for a speaker. But what I would have talked about before this happened to me changed, because I wanted to talk about something significant. And race is important for us to be reminded that we are the human race. We're the human race, and we are stronger and better together. And every day, I'm just really excited. I think I was a little bored before this happened, but when I wake up in the morning now, it's like, oh my God, I get another chance. I get another day. I get another opportunity to connect with people. And being over 50, for me now being 60, I just turned 60. I can't even believe it myself. I mean, look at me. I'm being silly, but it's just time flies. What is the highest and best use of your time? Who are the people who share your values, who share your goals, who you can collaborate with to have a positive impact? so that your story is one that will be repeated, is one that will resonate, is one that it will inspire other people. No one will know if you don't share, if you don't go out, and reach back. And that is really, that's the circle. That's the circle of life, that we just keep connecting more and more and more. And now I've got the talk, I've got a book to help you launch your self-publishing journey if you want to be a writer, because there's so many great stories out there. So many great stories that should be told, that others need to hear. So I had all these people asking me, how do I write a book? How do I write a book? I must have had that conversation with about 100 people. And I decided, you know what, I need to write this down. How you write a book. Let me write this down. My other book, Success is a Side Effect, is on personal growth and personal development. The lessons I've learned being in corporate, being an entrepreneur, being in private practice. I want to pass those forward. What do you want to pass forward? Whether it's recipes, whether it's how to raise your child, whether it's how to start a business like Gertrude and go global with your story. What is it that you want to do? If you're feeling lost, if you're feeling distressed, depressed, I'm going to encourage you to go outside of yourself. And instead of thinking about how you can make $1, think about how you can make a difference. That has been the most joyful part of my life, is seeing that I've made a difference in other lives, is seeing that other people are successful. They got a position, they got a partner. I've hooked up a few people on relationships. That is really the imposter syndrome is just another way, it's just another form of analysis paralysis, just another limiting belief. And when I got sick, when I got divorced, when my kids were looking at me like I was the enemy, those things kind of linger in your mind. But I've learned to affirm myself and to be kind to myself. And that's what we have to do at any age, is to be kind to ourselves. We can be our worst critic, can't we? We can be our own worst enemy sometimes. But the good you do matters. You are where you're supposed to be. There's no imposter syndrome about it. If you've been blessed to be in a position, to have certain things, to know certain things, you earned it. You earned it. You deserve it. And the only obligation you have is to pass it forward and to make sure it doesn't die with you. And I will not leave here. I will not leave here with one thing left inside of me. I'll be an empty vessel. That should be the goal, that we go to the great beyond, having said every kind word that needed to be said, hugged everybody that needed to be hugged, shared the knowledge that we've been fortunate to be given, and that we've loved as hard as we can love. I want to be totally empty. So I recommend that you get a plan. You've got a vision. I know you do. We all have a vision. State the vision and make it plain. A goal is a dream with a deadline. Write it down. Break it into manageable, bite-sized, practical little steps that you can do. And then slowly but surely take yourself forward. And if you're waiting for somebody to push you, if you're waiting for somebody to tell you to do it, if you're waiting for somebody to finance it, it is likely that it's not going to happen. Not at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, until other people see you taking a step, until they see you trying, until they see your passion, until they know that you're clear on your direction. And then when you start to move, it is amazing how people gravitate to you, how opportunities and doors open up for you, because you have the courage that a lot of people have difficulty getting, the courage to try. That's it. And if you fail, Thomas Edison said, I have not failed. I have simply found 10,000 ways that will not work. No is inevitable. It is part of life. You're just getting no's out of the way. You're getting haters out of the way. You're getting no's out of the way. You're getting obstacles out of the way. And when we realize that those are just part of life and that it's not anything personal coming at us to hinder solely us, then we act accordingly. and we move forward. We learn those lessons from the no's. There's lessons to be learned there. And then we move forward with grace and with kindness and with compassion. And you really don't have empathy until you've had some crap happen to you, right? That's when you can really not just sympathize, but empathize with other people.
Wow. What an incredible story, Mo. You know, listening to you speak, I feel like I've met a sister from another mother.
Yes, agreed.
We have had very, very parallel lives, and it's incredible. I can feel the resilience in you. I can feel the life energy that pulses through your veins, even though you're so far away from me. And
Thank
just
you.
that joy of being alive, right?
Right.
Now, you've had several life-changing events. I want to take you back. Let's start with the C word because that is a thing that scares a lot of women.
Absolutely.
Minute you're told you have cancer, you jump into fear. If there is a woman who is listening to this podcast right now, has just come from the doctors,
Hmm.
sitting there thinking, what do I do now? Based on what you have learned from your experience, what would you have wanted somebody to have said to you when you got your diagnosis to help you stay positive?
The first thing is that you need to get your people around you. You need your friends, your church family, your neighbors, people around you whom you can trust. I see a lot of people that go into secret mode. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to keep this to myself. But that support, that spiritual and physical support is essential because you're going to feel weak emotionally by this diagnosis. It's just like a blow to your brain. So that's number one. Number two is education. Whatever your diagnosis is, whatever they say, you go on YouTube, you go on Google, you go on PubMed, and you get all the information that you can. I love physicians. I'm in healthcare, I'm a dentist, but healthcare providers don't know everything, and they're in a hurry when they're talking to you. Education, that knowledge is power. That's what I would tell them is to learn more about it, learn about treatments, and then last, find a group, whether it's I'm in a couple of Facebook groups for the type that I have, whether it's Facebook or a group in your area. Find a community of people who share your diagnosis so that you have that support as well. Those are three critical things I would recommend.
Yeah, it's really quite imperative. In Africa, we have a saying that a problem shared is a problem halved. The minute you tell
That's
your
beautiful.
story, your problem to somebody else, they now carry it with you. It's not your burden to carry alone. Even
Hmm.
if they can't do anything for you, just in the listening is a lot of power that comes with the sharing of our story. So
Hmm.
thank you for emphasizing on that because keeping it to yourself is not going to help you.
No.
Now, you've bounced back several times. You've done some incredible things. You've run a marathon. You've survived two major cancer incidents. Where does that resilience come from? What is it that you do when you hit rock bottom that makes you get up and just keep going and keep going?
I have, that's a great question. And I have seen research in the realm of psychology that says that some people are just wired like this. And you don't know until you go through a tragedy. But when you see those people who lose limbs, for example, and then they decide they're going to go into, Olympics for people with disability or people who are, burned tragically and become models or lose everything, but still have their sense of humor and their joy. There is a component of that that's wired. But for me, and by wired, I mean genetically, that's your makeup, is that you just come back from things. But the other part for me is my faith. Um, I am a Christian. I do believe that everything is working for my good and God's glory. And my faith really sustains me. Listening to gospel music, praying, meditating and just believing there's a reason that things happen, that it's not random, that there's a reason for it, and that it's going to work together for good.
Yeah, they do say that we go through our trials and tribulations so we can become teachers.
Yes.
There is no way you can have that level of empathy with somebody who's going through something similar unless you've walked through the fire and come out on the other side yourself. Now, let me take you through a little thought experiment. I'm going to teleport you into the future.
Okay. Do I need to strap up? Let me be ready.
Seatbelt. We are going to go and visit you at 100 years old.
Woo,
You're
praise
sitting
God.
in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, whoever is there with you at that moment. If you could teleport into the future and have a conversation with the future you, based on how you are living your life right now and based on how she is guiding you to that point, what would you say to this amazing woman?
Wow. What a really, really great question. I never really thought that far into the future, but I just hope I am surrounded by love, people who love me and people whom I love. And I hope that they can say that I've made a difference for them, that in some way I've made it easier for them. I want to leave so many legacies for my children in particular. My mind goes to family at that point, with not just, financial literacy, but their health, their relationships, their communication. And I hope that in seeing that the way that I've changed, because I've changed a lot because of this diagnosis, I hope in seeing that the way I've changed and that I've adapted to our changing society, that they'll, say I've had a good impact on them, that I've had a positive impact. That's really all I can think of at this time. And if I was the 100-year-old me talking to the younger me, I would definitely say, "Shut up, you talk too much. You need to listen more." Because the younger me, oh my goodness, she knew everything, and yeah, she's gone.
The reason why I like to ask that question is that a lot of women don't realize that she's already in us.
Mm.
The future we are trying to become is already there. And sometimes I go into meditation and prayers in the morning and I tune into the energy of who I am becoming. And I ask her questions. I ask her, what is the next step? What am I supposed to do?
I
And
like
these
that.
knowings percolate through my dreams. Sometimes I could be talking to somebody about what I'm working on, and the
Mhm.
next person gives me the next step. But we are constantly being guided because we already have it in us. But women forget that. And we
Yes,
forget to trust ourselves and trust our intuition, right?
you're right. I'll be mindful of that. I like that. That's profound.
So now you have these incredible books. My passion, as you know, through her story, is to write women's stories into history. That's what this podcast is all about.
It's beautiful.
I know that this will be my living legacy
Mhm.
that I will check out, having curated millions of women's stories across the globe. Why is it important for women to honor our stories? Why is it important for us to put it down on a piece of paper and share it?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind is that history is his story, and our stories have not been told. Women, people of color, many indigenous people in different areas. And if our story is not told, then our perspective is not captured. The lessons that we've learned, the accomplishments, the achievements, does not become his story. I think is just imperative that the contributions of women all over the world, so many amazing contributions and inventions, even when we couldn't have patents, when we were literally owned by males, there's so many untold stories that the onus is on us to tell our stories, to tell our sister stories as you're doing, and to share that and to pass it forward. And so that the 100-year-old us is not having to see the challenges and the failures replayed because the lesson was not learned, because the story was not told, and that we're doomed to repeat the history if we don't learn it. And we're seeing some of that now. So what you're doing is phenomenal, and it's going to make a huge difference in the lives of so many young women in particular to hear these stories. And it's inspiring to me to hear your story, to hear other women's stories. We have to capture it, we have to catalog it, we have to chronicle it, and we have to pass it forward.
Yeah, I use that whole pun of history and her story. It's like we've got to do this. And they say that the richest places in the world are graveyards. They're
Yes.
filled with people who had amazing life stories, just incredible life experiences, and they didn't have the courage to put it on a piece of paper and
Right.
share it.
Right.
So don't go to your grave with your stories, ladies. Here is Dr. mOe. She has a book, she has a process, she has a way to help you capture the essence of who you are. Imagine your grandchildren and your great grandchildren writing and reading about you. I always say to my kids, when I die, my great grandchildren will be talking about this crazy little African grandmother who got on a flight with three little children and went to the other side of the world. New Zealand is like the furthest place in the world you can go.
It
And she lived
is.
an incredible life. This is why I share my story, to inspire the next generation on what is possible when you live your life to the
Yeah.
full. Now, I loved something you said a little bit earlier, that when you check out of this life, you are leaving completely dry. It sounds like you're going to squeeze all the juice that God put.
Laying it out. Yeah.
You're going to leave that in this world. How many people do we know who don't get to do that?
There are so many books buried in the cemetery. There are so many songs buried in the cemetery.
Wow.
So many motivational speeches buried in the cemetery. So many opportunities that would have, should have, could have been buried in the cemetery because people did not act on their ideas. They did not utilize their talents to the fullest. We are to invest in each other, not just to keep it to ourselves. That's the whole purpose. That's why we're here, I believe.
It's absolutely awesome. Well, I feel really honored to have met you, mOe. Like I said,
Likewise.
you feel like a sister from another mother. We've had these weird parallel lives, and we are
No.
connecting using this virtual platform. And what's happened since COVID is the world is flat right now, ladies. The world is flat. You could be in America and you're talking to somebody in Melbourne, Australia, Japan, Spain. Let's
Yeah.
utilize this technology to reach each other, to empower each other, and leave this planet a better place than we found it.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do for my kids, for my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, just to leave the world a better place than we found it. And I loved your TED talk, the focus on racism and race relations issues in America and in all the other parts of the world. We experience it here in Australia. We are a minority in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually developing an application called the Diversity Connector because of the need that I have seen in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Indigenous people, marginalized, African immigrants mostly come in as refugees. So a lot of times people assume, they make an assumption that I'm a refugee, and you are treated in a really derogative way. I'll give you an example. I walked into Apple the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I transitioned from PC to Apple a couple of years ago, and I hate Apple.
That's not something I hear every day.
Oh, I feel that Apple is forcing me to upgrade, so I have to buy a new product. Their product is good. It's just that they do little things to make you pay more. And so I
it's
was
different
resisting it.
cables and a different type of charge.
Yes,
Nothing from your previous phone works
that
with your
didn't
new.
work.
I know.
Anyway, I gave in and I transitioned to Apple, and I had a few little issues. I'm a tech person. I program computers in BASIC, Pascal, COBOL. Technology is not something new to me, right?
Mhm.
But I walk into this Apple store just wanting a bit of advice on something I was struggling with. And this young man takes one look at me, assumes I'm a refugee, and blatantly to my face says, "There's no one in the store that can help you with that." Now, I
Wow.
know Apple is open to its customers. You can go into any Apple store in any part of the
Right.
world. So long as you have their product, you get their support. And I stood there and I said, "No, that's not true. Call your manager." And this kid was 22, 23, and he insists I leave the store.
Oh
And I
my.
insisted I was not going anywhere.
Nor would I.
It was an interesting experience. So, anyway, he eventually calls his manager. His manager says to me, "No, I think you made a mistake. That's not what he meant." And I'm like, "You are missing a teaching moment right now.
Mm-hmm.
You need to call that young man. He needs to apologize for what he did to me. If I was somebody who didn't speak English well, who didn't understand computers, I would have walked out of the store feeling dejected,
Mm-hmm.
insulted, and you're missing a teaching opportunity for that young man never to make assumptions by looking at somebody on face value, looking at them that they're black, they're ignorant, they don't know computers.
Mm-hmm.
So your work is needed. Please keep on doing what you're doing. That's going to be another level that I need to stay connected to you on,
Yes.
because DI, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, is one of my passions. And I always say that my soul, when I jumped into my chocolate brown skin, I came into this life to try and be the change that we need to see in the world.
Yes.
I've been a minority my whole life. You can imagine being in technology in 1986 when it was male dominated, white dominated, and it still is in most instances.
Well, that was dentistry. That was, yeah, I was the only one in the room so often, female, black, from the South. Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot of work to still be done. So thank you so much for showing up for me today, just reinforcing that this work is not just being done by me, but there's other movers and shakers out there doing the work alongside me.
And you're inspiring us all. You do so many things well. There are a lot of people who do a lot of stuff, but they're kind of masters of mediocrity. You do so many things well, and I applaud you for sharing your story, for helping others in so many different ways, and for giving me an opportunity to share my story as well. I'm very, very grateful.
It's an absolute pleasure. My mother used to say I was ADHD, I just wasn't medicated.
I've heard that as well, but or you get bored too easily. I'm like, I'm not bored. These things need to be done. It has nothing to do with being bored. I would enjoy some boredom.
Oh, I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much, Mo. You really have graced me this morning. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal women. We have stories around business and entrepreneurship, health and wellness, family and relationships, creativity, social justice, spirituality. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview another amazing sister. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thank you, Mo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.